Have you ever been so hurt, so deeply betrayed, that silence became your only safe place? What if the pain you thought would destroy you was actually the beginning of something sacred? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear may be the very reminder your soul has been waiting for. They didn't just leave, did they? No, it wasn't that simple. They unmade you, quietly, bit by bit. They unraveled parts of you that you didn't even know were fragile until they were gone. And maybe you don't speak of it anymore. Maybe you wear strength like armor now. But somewhere, deep beneath that calm exterior, the memory still lingers, like a quiet storm hiding in the bones of your soul. You remember the moment they walked away, not with fireworks or final words, but with a silence that screamed louder than any goodbye. You remember standing still as everything familiar faded into something you didn't recognize. And that wasn't just them walking out the door. That was them taking pieces of you with them. They took the part of you that loved freely, without hesitation. They took the part of you that believed in people, in promises, in forever. They took the part that didn't know how to build walls because you were too busy building bridges. And in their absence, you were left behind, not just alone, but emptied, sitting in a room full of memories that no longer made sense. Staring at your own reflection and wondering, was it me? Was I the problem? Was I too much to love, or not enough to stay for? That's the game the enemy plays. He waits until you're raw, vulnerable, and just barely standing, and then he whispers lies into your mind like poison. Lies that sound so convincing in the stillness of heartbreak. Lies that say, you're not worthy, you're not lovable, you were never enough. And the worst part? Sometimes we believe them. Because when you give someone your best, your full heart, your whole trust, and they break it, it doesn't just hurt, it echoes. That pain reverberates through every corner of your being. It changes the way you breathe, the way you trust, the way you love again, if you even let yourself love again. You start to question kindness, as if it's a trick. You flinch at affection, afraid it's just another trap. You keep people at arm's length, even the ones who mean well, because your scars have become your defense. You build walls so high that not even light gets in, and you convince yourself that's safety. But let me interrupt that thought, right now, because this next part, it matters more than everything that came before. You didn't stay broken. Yes, you were shattered. Yes, you were knocked to the ground, breathless and bleeding in your spirit. But you didn't stay there. And that's what they never saw coming. That's what they didn't plan for. Because while they walked away thinking they ended your story, they didn't realize they were only turning the page. They thought leaving you would finish you. They thought breaking you would bury you. They thought your silence meant defeat. But God had another plan. See, the world may have seen your breakdown, but they missed your breakthrough. They weren't there for the moments when you clawed your way back from despair. They didn't witness the nights you cried out to God with nothing but breath and grief. They didn't hear the whispered prayers or see the tears fall onto your pillow. But God did. He was there. He always was. And He didn't just comfort you, He rebuilt you. God doesn't merely work in spite of our brokenness. No, He moves through it. He takes the shattered fragments we think are useless and turns them into a mosaic of glory. He reshapes our pain into purpose, our heartache into healing, and our wounds into wisdom. You are not the same person who once sat broken in silence. You are not the same soul who questioned your worth in the mirror. You are not who you used to be. You are becoming something stronger, softer, wiser. You are rising, and this is just the beginning. Stay with me, because in the next part, we'll talk about how your healing isn't just for you, it's a beacon for others still in the dark. Following from before, you didn't let your brokenness define you. Instead, you rose from it, rebuilt by the grace of God. And now, as you walk the path of healing, a deeper truth begins to unfold. That season of heartbreak, it didn't define you. It refined you. You're no longer the person who crumbled at the first sign of pain. You've learned how to stand on your own. You've learned how to cry. Then wipe your tears and keep walking. You discovered a kind of strength inside you that you never even knew was there. And here's the real miracle. Even though they walked away, you're still here, still breathing, still rebuilding, still believing. Yes, you carry scars, but scars aren't weakness. Scars are proof that you survived something that tried to take you out. You didn't break, you broke through. And now, they're back. Now they want to talk. Now they realize what they lost. But here's a hard truth that not everyone's ready to hear. Just because someone wakes up and finally sees your value doesn't mean you're obligated to open the door. Some people only return because they see your light shining brighter than before. But don't forget, they weren't there when your light was dim. They didn't stay to water the seed. But now they want to enjoy the fruit. That's not love. That's convenience. That's regret knocking, hoping you'll forget the price you paid for your healing. Don't fall for it. Don't let loneliness convince you to reopen a wound that God Himself already closed. You've come too far. You've grown too deep. You've learned too much. There is no going back to the place that broke you, not out of hate, not out of bitterness, but because you've finally learned how to love yourself enough to protect your peace. Listen closely. When they come back after shattering you, remember who held you when you cried. Remember who whispered to your heart when no one else was around. Remember who lifted you up through the nights you didn't think you'd survive. It wasn't them. It was God. And if God brought you out, don't you dare go back into what He rescued you from. They left you broken, but you didn't stay broken. And that is what they will never understand. Just because you've healed doesn't mean you have to open the door again. Healing is not a welcome mat for the one who wounded you. When someone breaks you and walks away, they forfeit the right to enjoy the healed version of you like nothing ever happened. That healing didn't come easy. It came through sleepless nights of silent prayers. It came through mornings where getting out of bed felt like warfare. You didn't go through that pain just to forget it, you went through it to learn. And when healing comes directly from the hand of God, it's not just a phase, it's a transformation. That healing, yes, the one that no one saw but God. It came through tears that no one noticed, through conversations with God that no one else could hear. You see, there's something sacred, something deeply personal, about true healing. It's not loud. It doesn't need to be public. Because real healing is between you and the one who created your soul. And when you walk through that sacred process, when God Himself reaches into your despair and lifts your spirit out of the ashes, when He breathes life back into the dry bones of your soul, you don't come out the same. No, you're changed, deeply, permanently. You begin to value things you once didn't know how to guard. Your peace, your energy, your joy, these aren't luxuries anymore. They're essentials. And when the very person who once shattered all of that shows up at your door again, acting like time just hit pause, you are not obligated to let them back in. They might say they miss you. They might even say they've changed. But let's be real. Change isn't proven in words. Change is proven in fruit. What have they cultivated since then? What fruit now grows where damage once lived? Healing doesn't wipe your memory clean. It doesn't erase the past. It teaches you. It gives you clarity. And that clarity will reveal something important. Some people don't miss you. They miss how you made them feel. They miss your presence, your support, your strength, especially when they brought none of that to the table. They miss being loved when they were difficult to love. They miss being carried when they gave you nothing in return. But don't confuse nostalgia with restoration. Just because someone regrets losing you doesn't mean they're ready to respect who you've become. Remember what it took for you to get here. Remember how you had to learn to walk again. Spiritually, emotionally, maybe even physically. You learned how to breathe without needing their approval. You learned how to look in the mirror and see someone worthy. Even after they made you feel small. Even after they made you feel like you didn't matter. So when they come knocking again, don't let guilt or nostalgia trick you into handing them a key to the new space that they never helped build. You didn't go through all that pain, all that rebuilding, just to give access to someone who once shattered everything. That's exactly what the enemy wants. To pull you back into the very place God already delivered you from. But healing should make you wiser. It should give you new eyes. Now, you see things you once ignored. Now, you can tell the difference between a lesson and a lifeline. Some people were meant to teach you, not travel with you. And once the lesson is learned, you don't retake the class. Because this journey isn't just about moving on. It's about moving up. Elevation requires separation. You've outgrown the version of you that needed their approval. You've outgrown the silence you used to sit in, just to keep the peace that was never real to begin with. You've outgrown the version of yourself that tolerated being treated like an afterthought. You've outgrown the version that stayed silent to keep fake peace. You've outgrown the need to prove your worth to someone who never saw it. And that growth? It didn't happen so that you could shrink back into your old patterns just because someone returned with regret. No, it happened so you could stand taller than ever before and boldly say, "I've been through too much to go back to what broke me." That's not bitterness. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. That's strength. You're not being mean. You're not being cold. You're protecting the sacred things God has rebuilt within you. Your heart, your peace, your calling. And sometimes, the most powerful response is no response at all. Silence can be strength. Sometimes, the greatest closure isn't found in a long conversation or emotional goodbye. It's found in not granting access to someone who chose to leave you when you needed them most. Let them come back. Let them see what they lost. Let them remember the warmth of your love and the strength of your spirit. But don't mistake their return for your responsibility. God didn't bring you this far just to revisit the ruins. He brought you here to walk forward, confidently, courageously, into a future designed by His hand. Not your past pain. That healing journey? It wasn't casual. It wasn't random. It was sacred. It was personal. It was holy. And it's not a revolving door for others to enter whenever they feel like it. It's a pathway forward, a door only meant for you. Healing is not a way back to their comfort. It's a gateway to your freedom. But let's be honest, pain doesn't always knock, does it? It doesn't call ahead or give you time to prepare. It barges in, uninvited and unexpected. And often, it enters through the people you trust most. The ones you believed in. The ones you loved. The ones you never imagined could hurt you so deeply. And when it hits, it shakes you to your core. It strips away your routines. It crushes the illusion that you were in control. And suddenly, you're standing in unfamiliar territory. Unsure of who you are or where you're going. The very foundation of your identity feels cracked. But hear this. Pain is not punishment. It's not proof that God has forgotten you. It's not a sign that you weren't enough. No, absolutely not. In fact, pain, deep, soul-cutting, heart-wrenching pain, is often the classroom of transformation. It's where God teaches us what we never would have learned in comfort. What they meant to destroy you with, God will use to develop you. What they did to break you, He will use to build you. That pain, It wasn't your end. It was the beginning of something new. You didn't just cry through that pain. You grew through it. And yes, in the moment, it may have felt like punishment. But now, looking back, can't you see it? Can't you see the shift? You pray differently now. You move differently. You've started to see people clearly, not for who you hoped they would be, but for who they really are. You got wise. You stopped chasing after apologies that would never come. You stopped begging for love that never honored your worth. You stopped silencing your spirit just to hear someone else louder. You started listening to your own soul, to the whisper of truth that had been buried beneath the noise of needing to be accepted. And in that silence, you found something that comfort could never give you: clarity. That pain, it birthed vision. It birthed strength. It pulled something out of you that comfort and ease never could. Because when you go through real pain, especially the kind born from betrayal, abandonment, or rejection, it doesn't just hurt. It reveals. It reveals your dependencies, who or what you were relying on to feel whole. It exposes your patterns, the things you kept repeating, even though they kept breaking you. It unmasks your blind spots, those areas of your heart you couldn't see clearly until they bled. But more than anything, pain reveals your need for God in a way peace never could. Because it's in those moments, when you're on the floor with nothing left to give, nothing left to hold on to, that you finally stop reaching for people and start reaching for Him. You stop trying to fix everything with your own strength. And in that raw surrender, you finally say, "Lord, I can't carry this." And that, right there, is where healing begins. Not from the outside in, but from the inside out. And listen to me carefully. The people who caused that pain, they weren't there for your transformation. They didn't sit in the darkness with you. They didn't hear the prayers. They didn't feel the trembling in your voice when all you could say was, "God, help me." They saw your breakdown, but they weren't there for your breakthrough. And that matters. That's something you need to hold close to your heart, especially when they try to come back. Because some people want the version of you that pain produced, but they didn't stay through the process that shaped you. They weren't there for the nights of pacing the floor, the mornings you didn't want to get up, the afternoons you walked around numb, wondering if joy would ever return. They don't know the price. They don't know the weight you carried behind the smile. They don't know how many times you stood in the mirror and asked yourself if you were enough. So don't let them walk back in like they're entitled to your peace. They're not. Don't let them cheapen your growth, your healing, by pretending they were part of the journey. They weren't, but God was. God saw every tear, every sleepless night, every anxious thought, every moment you felt invisible, unworthy, forgotten, and He wasn't punishing you. He was preparing you, not to go back to what broke you, but to step into something greater than what you lost. And sometimes, the pain, it wasn't even about them. It was about you. You outgrew the space you were in. And pain was the only thing strong enough to shake you free from the people and patterns that couldn't go with you into the next chapter. It hurt, yes, but it had purpose. It wasn't wasted. That pain taught you to stand. It taught you how to rise. It taught you how to stop begging for love and start recognizing your God-given value. From the pain, you learned to see people clearly, and to see yourself clearly. You no longer beg for love. Now, you're learning to stand in your true worth, not because someone chooses you, but because God has already called you complete. That pain, it didn't just break you. It separated you. It cut away what was slowly destroying your spirit. Even if your heart wasn't ready to let go, it pried your fingers from things you were clinging to out of fear, not love. And now you have something more powerful than relief. You have perspective. You have wisdom. You have a kind of discernment that only comes from walking through fire and surviving it. So don't be ashamed of your pain. Don't tuck it away like a scar you're trying to hide. Wear it like armor. Let it guide your decisions. Let it shape your boundaries. Let it empower your voice when you're tempted to stay silent. Because pain was never meant to paralyze you. It was meant to prepare you. It was your teacher, not your punishment. But let's be honest, when someone walks away after breaking you, it's so easy to sit in that space and ask, what was wrong with me? It's human. You replay conversations over and over. You wonder if you should have tried harder, loved better, been quieter, more forgiving. You start carrying guilt that doesn't belong to you. But here's the truth. Sometimes people leave, not because you were lacking, but because they were. It wasn't your brokenness that made them run. It was theirs. It wasn't your insufficiency. It was their inability to hold what was whole. And it's only after they're gone, only after you've wandered through the wilderness of healing, that you finally begin to realize something powerful, something sacred. You never needed them to be whole. There's this lie the world keeps selling us, that your worth is measured by who stays, that if they want you, you're worthy, that if they leave, something must be wrong with you. But that's not truth. That's a wound talking. The truth is, when someone walks away, it doesn't subtract from your value. It doesn't shake the foundation of your identity. Because your identity isn't rooted in who loves you. It's rooted in the one who created you. And when you begin to heal, when God starts putting the broken pieces back together, you uncover something holy. The strength you were looking for in them, it was inside of you all along. You just didn't know it yet. You spent all that time trying to hold it all together, trying to fix what they broke, trying to become what they needed. And somewhere along the way, you forgot something essential. You were never called to carry someone else's emotional chaos. You weren't created to be someone's savior. You weren't designed to be their solution. You weren't meant to be their scapegoat. You were created to be whole. And that's the beauty of healing. It teaches you that your wholeness isn't dependent on whether someone chooses you. Your wholeness is found in choosing yourself, the way God already chose you. Because when you rise, truly rise, from brokenness, you begin to see that being alone doesn't mean being empty. It means you're free. When you realize that you don't need someone else to be whole, you stop holding on to unhealthy relationships. You step out, not carrying the weight of one-sided effort, but walking in true freedom. You're free now, free from the confusion, free from the manipulation, free from the exhausting cycle of being told you're too much and yet never enough. You've broken the loop, and somewhere along the way, in the stillness of healing, you realized something life-changing. You were always enough. You just spent too long trying to fit into a story that wasn't written for you. You tried to carry a love that was never meant to rest on your shoulders alone. You gave your energy, your hope, your softness, to someone who never planned to hold it carefully. But now that you've healed, now that you've been restored from the inside out, you don't move the same. You no longer chase closure like it's the missing piece of your piece. You don't explain your silence. You protect it. And that's the shift. That's what marks the turning point. Because suddenly, they come back. But here's the catch. They come back looking for the version of you that no longer exists. They come seeking the one who used to bend until she broke. The one who begged just to be understood. The one who sacrificed herself to keep the peace in someone else's war. But that version? She's gone. Because now, you've got boundaries. You speak with clarity. You move with purpose. You have a stillness in your soul that doesn't tremble when someone walks away. And that unsettles them. Not because you've become cold. Not because you've stopped caring. but because you've finally started choosing yourself. You've embraced the strength that was there all along. Strength they never bothered to see. Strength they never stayed long enough to witness. Funny, isn't it? The ones who leave when you're vulnerable are often the same ones who come back once they see you strong. But here's what they'll never understand. This version of you wasn't built with their help. It was built in the quiet, in the dark, in the long nights of tears and prayer and questions that had no answers. This you was forged in the early mornings when your body said, "Stay down," but your spirit whispered, "Get up." This version of you was crafted in the fire, formed through pressure, hardened through disappointment, purified by truth. And because of that, you don't just hand your healing back to the same hands that once shattered it. So when they return, with apologies, with memories, with intentions unclear, don't look back. Don't give up the ground you bled to gain. Don't trade your clarity for chaos. Don't forget what it cost you to learn how to smile again, how to breathe again, how to see yourself and not flinch. You don't need them to feel whole. You never did. They were just the noise that kept you from hearing what God was always whispering. You are enough. You are already complete. And you are stronger than you ever imagined. Sometimes it takes being broken to realize you've been whole all along. And there is a peace that comes after the storm. Not because things go back to how they used to be, but because you've finally made peace with the truth that they never will. After the storm, you didn't just find peace, you learned how to protect it. And then you realized, true peace is never something that comes easily. It is the result of loss, of understanding, and of a faith that has been tested in fire. That kind of peace, the deep, steady, unshakable kind of peace, it never comes cheap. It arrives only after you've cried into your pillow night after night. After your heart has been stretched beyond what it thought it could bear. After you've lived through confusion that felt like it might never lift. It comes after silence from people you once thought would fight for you. After the ache of questions that may never be answered. After wandering through the wilderness of loneliness and learning how to stand anyway. But somehow, through all of it, God gives you clarity. And here's the miracle. That clarity doesn't always come about them. It comes about you. You begin to realize that not everyone who breaks you deserves a second chance. Not every "I miss you" is an invitation. Not every return is redemption. And if you're not careful, the very thing God healed you from can show up at your door again, wearing a new smile but carrying the same old damage. That's why discernment matters. That's why wisdom matters. Because when God brings you through something, it's not so you can walk right back into it like nothing ever happened. It's so you'll never settle for it again. Time and distance have a way of giving you sight. Not just sight, but vision. You begin to see what you didn't want to admit when emotions clouded your thinking. You see how much you gave, and how little you received. You see how you explained your worth more than you experienced it. And when that light finally turns on, it's not bitterness, it's revelation. It's the grace of God lifting the veil from your eyes, showing you truth that, before, you were too loyal, too hopeful, too afraid to face. Because here's the hard truth. Some people don't come back because they love you. They come back because they realize they've lost access to something rare, something real. And when they see you rising, when they see you walking in peace again, walking in purpose, they think they can slide right back into your life as if it still belongs to them. But they're wrong. Peace is not a playground. It is sacred ground, and you have every right to guard it. Because when you heal, you start to value your energy differently. You stop giving it to things and people who drain it. You stop apologizing for walking away from confusion. You no longer feel guilty for choosing peace. even when it means leaving behind people who brought you chaos. You learn that not every relationship was meant to be restored. Some were simply meant to be released. And that release? It wasn't rejection. It was redirection. Because God never removes something from your life without a reason. Sometimes He allows the breaking so that He can rebuild you, stronger, wiser, and more deeply rooted in Him. And when He rebuilds you, He doesn't use the same broken pieces. God never rebuilds you on the same old ground. When He heals you, He also gives you a new foundation, one that is strong, discerning, and filled with peace, and it becomes your responsibility to protect what He has restored in you. He gives you new foundations. He doesn't rebuild your heart using broken bricks. He lays new ground. He gives you discernment, so you can recognize what's real and what's just familiar. He gives you patience, so you won't rush back into what once crushed you. He gives you inner strength, so you can walk away when it's easier to stay. And then, He gives you a command. Protect what I restored. That's why, when someone who left your life suddenly shows back up, you don't fling the door open just because they knock. No, you pause. You pray. You take a deep breath and look beyond their words. You ask yourself, is this peace, or is this just pain? Coming back in disguise? Because peace, true peace, is not just the absence of conflict. It's the presence of divine order. It's alignment with God's will. It's that deep, quiet stillness in your spirit that lets you sleep at night. It's the calm that doesn't come from people, but from heaven itself. And when you've fought for that stillness, when you've bled, cried, and rebuilt your life just to have peace again, you don't let just anyone walk back into it. The truth is, you've outgrown the cycle. You've outgrown the exhausting loop of explaining your heart to people who never once tried to hold it gently. You've outgrown making yourself smaller, quieter, easier to handle, just to fit into spaces that were never meant for the healed version of you. And you know what? That's okay. It's okay to love someone and still not let him back in. It's okay to forgive without reconnecting, because not every closed door is sealed in bitterness. Some doors are closed in wisdom, in strength, in obedience. You're not being harsh. You're being healed. You're not acting distant. You're acting wise. You're not protecting your ego. You're protecting what cost you everything to rebuild. You're now walking in a peace that didn't come from them. It didn't come from their apology. It didn't come from a reconciliation. It came from God. And when God gives you that kind of peace, you don't trade it for another round of the very thing that broke you in the first place. Protect your peace like it's a promise, because it is. As we close, remember this: you didn't walk through all that pain for nothing. Every fall, every tear, every silent step forward, God used it all to rebuild you on a stronger, deeper, unshakable foundation. You were not destroyed. You were not forgotten. You were chosen to live a life of peace. Not the kind the world gives, but a sacred stillness that only God can provide. So don't compromise. Don't return to the places that once broke you. Guard your peace like the most sacred part of your soul. Because you are worthy. Because you were healed, not to go back, but to move forward. Higher and further than you've ever been. If this message spoke to your heart, leave a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another message, another moment of truth, encouragement, and divine clarity on your journey. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, share this video with them. You never know, what you share might become the beginning of their healing. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. May peace always be with you.